Part 15 of the Great Farm Cleanup, and it's sunny after yesterday's drizzly cold wet wintry day, which was part 15. Did I say part 16? It's part 16 now. Hey guys, Chris and the Ultimate Recycler. We're still at the farm. We've been cleaning out the shed this morning. We've got the heater going. I'll show you what we're up to in there, and after lunch I do hope to get some firewood cut. It is actually a nice day now, but it's very wet underfoot. Look at that, we have blue sky, but we still have puddles. So it's actually a really nice day. There's no wind. The sun even has a little bit of warmth in it, but we do have to sort of puddle around in the mud to get places. But that's fine, that's winter, and the farmers would prefer to see it muddy than dry. Let's have a look in the shed. We were working out here yesterday afternoon while it was still raining, and sorting out lots of boxes of old plumbing fittings. I don't know why anyone needs so many plumbing fittings, but what happens is you keep them because they're going to be handy. You do use some, and then you'll go to a garage sale and there'll be a box of fittings and you say, yeah, I'll take them. There might be one that's useful, and you know, they multiply. So I've been sorting them into various groups here. The old plastic and poly pipe ones I'm just going to try and sell very cheaply through the shop to move them on. There's some cast aluminium pulleys off electric motors they'll sell. There's some really nice retro 1960s anodized aluminium bed lamps. They will clean up very well, and I'll test them, and it wouldn't surprise me if that set gets $30 or $40 in the shop. This is a box of things that I'm going to sell or keep to use. It's too good for scrap metal. There's a nozzle from probably not a petrol Bowser nozzle, it's probably more of a kerosene drum type nozzle. There's old, what do we got? There's old soldering irons. There's a large briquette fork there with no handle. There's some brass taps that will sell much better as taps rather than brass. More PVC plumbing fittings under there, or poly plumbing fittings. Just some scrap metal, old bearings and things that have gone rusty and really no good for anything. Some old Gel water pipe fittings. Most of them are rusty and broken or cut off or something, so they'll all just be going into heavy scrap. There's going to be lots of tins of old bolts. There's some useful stuff here that I'll sell or scrap. Insulators, that's an electric fence energizer. There's an old telephone bell system in there, so too good to scrap that stuff. We're finding bits of scrap wood as we're cleaning up, and we're keeping the fire going. I've lit it again this morning. And let me get my custom made fire openers. You can see she's burning quite well, keeping us nice and warm. We could probably even boil the kettle on the top if we wanted to. This is a good find, and this is the sort of stuff that sells very well from old sheds. There are a couple of ammunition boxes nailed together to make a little display rack. I think this had plumbing fittings in it, and that will wash up really nicely. Those boxes themselves would get $20 each anyway, but I think I'll probably put 50 on that little sort of, it's like a little storage unit. How cool would that look in a rustic country kitchen with potatoes and onions in it or something like that? So we'll clean that one up and take it back. We also have, you can see we've made a fair bit of room on this bench. We've been working on this corner. There's some other boxes and things I'll be taking. Here's another little storage cabinet made out of an old box. Again, it probably had plumbing fittings in it, judging by the old writing. Mostly just brass and bits of scrap now. And that one actually said Greatheads mixture, which was an early medicine. I've got some bottles, and if I can find a picture I'll show you one, and it says for all fevers. So nice old box there, but it's really cool how it's been made into a little storage cabinet. Now I've already taken a couple of boxes out to the van. Lots of brass we still haven't got underneath the shelf here. But I have cleaned up quite a bit of the area in front of this cupboard, and there's not much left in that cupboard. So Dad's been helping. It's been really good. We've been identifying bits and pieces, and he's pulling out things saying, I knew I had one of those, or I went and bought a new one of these because I didn't think I had one. And yeah, it's always quite amusing. There's random bottles of stuff we don't really know what, so that's just kerosene. You've got to be a bit careful, of course, with some of the old farm chemicals. And here's a couple of boxes I've just put in the van. This one is mostly brass fittings and everything under there, so a lot of non-ferrous stuff. So that will add to our haul of stuff to take to the scrapyard at some stage in the future. And there's some old car parts and things here that aren't much good. But there was an interesting old diesel fuel pump we found. This one, it's off an early tractor, and it was been sitting under the bench for as long as I can remember, and we dragged it out. I was going to just send it for scrap because it'd probably go as dirty aluminium, I guess, and it's quite heavy. Where's it made? France. And we found the book, and Dad said, oh yes, we used to have a Sift tractor. It was a 4-cylinder diesel. I think they bought it new in 1950 something. So this is the actual parts book, and it's pretty cool. Now, rather than just throw this fuel pump in the scrap, there could well be a tractor restorer person that has an old Sift tractor, and where would you find parts for them these days? So it might be something worth eBaying. You just never know who's looking for these old parts, and it's such a shame for original old parts that can be restored to be thrown in the scrap metal. I'd much prefer a collector to end up with it. Maybe restore it or just use it for parts to keep his tractor going. So there's a lot of old brochures and owner's manuals and things in here. This is actually the tractor that we saw down at the saw bench in last episode, and you'll see it later this afternoon if I start cutting wood. So that's the Countryman 6 Chamberlain tractor that Dad purchased brand new back in the 60s. So nice to have the original booklet for that. And I think eventually, whether we sell the tractor, the booklet might go with it, or whether the tractor gets kept, and I don't know. But yeah, original booklets are always great to find. Oh look, there's also a VW Beetle technical manual. So some of this does eBay very well. It's good that they're been kept in here. They're not in the best condition, but at least they've been kept away from the mice. 65 tractor, we've still got that tractor in the shed as well. So walking past Mum's shed here, and I heard some buzzing, and I thought, let's duck in and have a look. And yet, sure as eggs, she's got her little tumbler going. So let's have a look at this. It's buzzing away there, polishing some more gemstones. Have a look at them go round and round and round. Absolutely mesmerising. So I'm not sure how long they buzz around for, probably a day or a couple of days maybe with certain grits, and then you get finer grit and you eventually come out with your little polished gemstones. Back to sorting shed stuff now. There's endless boxes of plumbing fittings, and it's all pretty much scrap metal. There's nothing I'm going to save here. Even all the fittings are quite rusty, and they're just clearly been saved because it might be the exact fitting you need to get you out of trouble one day. Things have been made up for various jobs. Lots of old brass taps, and the ones that I can save I will, but there's a fair bit of brass in here. And I've started another box of brass over here. Some large P-traps and things. There's a fair bit of weight there. And look, there's still mountains of brass under here. So it's going to be good value for all this. I've got that top shelf cleaned up. I thought I might just share with you what's in this back box. I have not looked. My guess is more plumbing fittings. And what have we got here? Yeah, I can see another big brass tap. That's actually a foot valve, so that'll be brass as well. Really old pipe. Look at that. I mean, you would never try and use that. But look, in Dad's defence, he has used a lot of stuff over the years to save buying new stuff, and things just do tend to accumulate. No one's ever going to use all their sheds stores in their lifetime. Some's going to be left over. You can just imagine what's going to be left over in my shed. I think my kids are pretending it doesn't exist for now. Under here we've got another army ammunition box, so these are all pretty good to drag out. And we have more plumbing fittings, lots of big brass pieces again, another foot valve. Remembering in the old days we had water supply from the dam. You had to maintain your own water reticulation system, and there's been many water pipes and things laid out for gardens and orchards and things over the years. So a lot of this has been handy, and it's been reused probably 2 or 3 times. But now it's time to cash a lot of it in just as scrap metal. But I certainly will be pulling out any taps that are a bit more interesting that I can sell. These are old ammunition boxes of some sort, and that's got hinges in it. This bottom one has nothing. Someone's made dividers for it. These boxes themselves will sell okay. more plumbing fittings. I don't know what this furry thing, it looks like a paint roller. Well, that's not exactly usable anymore. Nuts and bolts, old paint cans full of nails. That's an idler pulley from something. And more plumbing fittings. Oh, there's some nice big gate valves in this one. So, all right, I'm not going to do too much in here today. There's another milk crate in the corner back under there. I think the odds-on favourite is plumbing fittings. Hang on, let me get this box out of the road. Okay, can we reach in here? It's quite light. Oh, this is PVC fittings. So, and a nice big copper float. So, pretty organised. At least it is the plumbing department. It's better off being this way than having boxes of plumbing fittings evenly distributed throughout the farm. They're all in the one spot. And it's been like pretty much a hardware store for this sort of stuff as you need it. Saves you driving into town to buy one. There's some nice old tins here that have been used as drawers, but they get scratched up on the bottom. And there's one up the top here, a nice old Castrol tin. Pretty knocked around. It's been well used, and I'm guessing the bottom's all scratched up. Let's have a look. Oh, it's actually still readable. So even though it's scuffed, scratched, and a little rusty, I'll clean that up. The top's certainly rough, but just cleaned up as a display tin in the shop, that'll easily get $10, much better than just throwing it in the scrap steel. Just random nuts and bolts in here. I'll just be tipping those in the steel bin here. And this one, let's have a look at this one while we can. We have an old hand drill, lots more brass fittings. In fact, they're all brass fittings. And let's see what the tin's like. And it's badly scuffed where it rubs in and out, so a bit of a shame. A tin like that in good condition, a 1 gallon tin, would probably get $30 or $40. If it was in pristine condition, you could probably ask up around $100. In this condition, as long as it presents okay when it's standing up and no one can see that the back's cut out of it, it's going to be $10, so it's worth saving anyway. We have, looks like some old universal joints down there. More tractor stuff, I think. A little box made into a storage thing again. What's these? It looks like a bed frame. That'll be cast aluminium, a bed frame bracket. And its mate there. I think these are cast iron. These were for bed frames as well. And we have some old square chain. And more, I think, tractor parts and things. That looks like a water pump off some old engine. And what's in here? A large hinge. Well, the T hinges I can sell. Hopefully there's a pair of those. That's an adjustable link for something. And this is an old horn. That's a pretty old one. Now, that will be worth checking out. Australian made, RVB I think the brand is. But that's older than the 70s. That's probably going back to the 50s or 60s. So we might try and identify what that's from. Lots of big old chunky bits in here. That's a greasable hinge. All right, if there's a pair of those, they will sell. They're better than scrap. All right, I won't start pulling all this out now. I think I'm going to pretty well call it quits on this shed cleanup as far as this corner goes. I'll just tidy up these last of the plumbing fittings. We'll attack the rest of this next time we're home. But I don't want to fill the van too much with stuff because I have to go out to that other shed when I get home on Friday. And I'd like the van emptied. So at least we've made a start in the shed. We've cleaned off this corner section, emptied quite a few boxes. And it's not about, as I said at the start of the last episode, it's not about emptying the shed because Dad still tinkers out here. So we're not, really cleaning it out yet. We're just decluttering a lot of stuff he's not going to use anymore. Okay, as for the wood pile, well, it's dried up enough and, it's suitable conditions to start cutting up a bit. But it appears the gods don't want us to cut wood this trip because Dad went to start the old tractor and he let the magic smoke out. Yep, the starter motor here, Dad actually starts it with a screwdriver across the terminals, which is a highly dangerous practice, and I recommend that absolutely no one ever do it. In fact, we had a neighbour down the road that I think ran over himself doing this. But he went to start it and it was quite wet earlier this morning. It's still a bit damp now and something's fused inside and we had a bit of smoke coming out. So unfortunately it means we probably can't start the tractor today, but we are going to take the starter motor off and see if we can work out what's going on. We may be able to fix it if it's just a connecting wire inside. but if it's something to do with the armature or the actual startup, the motor part of it, it's going to have to be sent away to be fixed, which is a real bugger. But anyway, we'll have a look at that first and see what we can sort out. We got the starter off all right. It's back in the shed. We've even cleaned up a bit of bench here to work on it. And we took this end apart and had a look at the brushes. The brushes look okay, but we think it probably needs a bit of rewiring. We didn't want to start pulling it apart much further. It's beyond a quick fix, so Dad's going to run it up to the local larger town where he gets his machinery worked on, and we'll get that. Might have to be rewound or something, but it's worth getting going. So that will be going in a box to go in the car to send off to be repaired. Now we've also got issues with the other tractor. It seems like I'm struggling to get things done this trip. And the little Massey Ferguson out here, it's had a bad fuel leak from the fuel tank for quite a while. And Dad was just saying that it seems to cut out when it's idling all the time, and he thinks there's some sediment or some rubber or something floating around in the tank, and it blocks off the fuel. Because when it happens, he has to actually unhook the fuel line and blow some compressed air back through here, and it seems to clear it. Now it runs fine when it's a fast, when it's not an idle, but when it's an idle, it cuts out. That's a pain. Any of you have got diesel engines, you've got to bleed the fuel to get them running again. It's not just a matter of turning the key and it starts up. So, and given that it's so messy from the dripping diesel out of the tank, we're going to take the tank off as well, and that can be taken off to be repaired. It's worth getting these things operational because they're still being used around here, and of course when we're going to sell them later, we might as well have them cleaned up and in good operating order. And I think he's also going to take the old generator off this and get an alternator put on there. So it's turning into a mechanicking afternoon without really much productivity. We're not going to get any wood cut this time, but we'll get these things organised so that Dad can take them up and be fixed. So my next job, let's walk over to the sheds over here. We sold a couple of bulk grain trailers a while back to a local farmer, and he's come and got one. The other one is still full of old grain, which we have to get rid of. Haven't got any wind noise going on here. It's getting a bit breezy out. So here's the trailer in the shed here, and we need to empty it, which doesn't sound that complicated on face value. And let's have a look in there. Okay, we have a lot of really old, I think it's barley. And it's mainly just chaff. There's been rats and mice through here. It's been wet, and it's gone a bit it's caked to the edges of the bin. It's been in here a long, long time. I think Dad was using it as sheep feed, and it should have been emptied out well before this, but we have to try and get it out. And the problem is that the sliding mechanism underneath to open the chute is rusted solid and jammed up. I think Dad's managed to move it a little bit, but because the grain there's been condensation inside it with the grain, and it's got a bit wet and rusty, everything's seized up and we can't actually open it. So I've got to try and lie under here and see if I can free it up. And if we can let all that old grain out, then the guy that's bought the trailer can come and pick it up and take it away. I'm pleased to report that we've had success. I've managed to get the slide right open, and you can see the state of that grain. It's sopping wet. It absolutely stinks. I'd say it's probably fermenting, so perhaps it's highly alcoholic. Maybe we could make a new Australian beer for Ian Matthews. He loves his beers. I don't know what we'd call it, but I reckon it'd be fairly potent. So you can see the slide there. I've managed to get it open. Not much dropped out because it's all clogged up. What we're going to do, it'll probably dry out now that we can get some air through the bottom. And I suspect the best method of emptying the bin, maybe hooking it up behind the tractor once it's dried out a bit, and just towing it around the bumpy paddock flat out and let it all bounce around and fall out. So happy to get that done. That's a job that Dad wasn't able to do. It was pretty awkward crawling under there and hammering away. But we managed to get it open, so that's good. Job ticked off. So we can tick this job off too. We've just got the fuel tank off the Fergie tractor, and now we can degrease and pressure wash the engine, clean it all up. The filter came out of the tank here, and if we can get some vision of this, it's very black. It's got sludge over the filter mesh. So any wonder it was playing up. It's a wonder it was running at all. The tank is back here, just draining the last of it out, so we can send that off now to get fixed, and the bit of a crack fixed up so it doesn't leak anymore. And the rest of the fuel we drained out is in this tub here. And you shouldn't drink that, Coco. Stay back. There's some black mass there, which is probably water. It should roll around a bit. Some of it does. So contamination, water, and probably a long time of muck and sediment. So all fixed. Well, it will be fixed. Okay, as the sun goes down on another day at the farm, that actually looks bright through the camera. It's starting to get pretty dark here now. We're going to call it quits for this episode. We're going back in the morning, probably just before lunchtime or something, so we won't get much else done this trip. Been pretty successful. Disappointed I didn't get any wood cut, but we got a few jobs done. Got a big effort started in the garage there. The van has got a fair bit of scrap and stuff in it, and I didn't want to load it up too much, as I may have mentioned. So it was a worthwhile trip. We got a few things sorted, and it's nice to see things come together a little bit more, especially getting into some of the areas that will be a big cleanup when the time comes to empty them. It's nice to, you know, get a bit done in stages. So thanks for watching, guys. Another episode done and dusted. We'll be back at the farm probably in another 3 or 4 weeks. Maybe I want to try and do a trip each month or thereabouts, depending what's going on at home, and we have to get into that big shed deal that I've done there. So catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.